we begin our ascent to Yerushalayim. It feels like something historic. Every time I think about the fact that we get to just get in our car and drive up to Jerusalem.
ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני גיבור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך.
Such a monumental place in history. You read so many times. They went up to Jerusalem, they went to Jerusalem, and people have traveled, like Mark Twain and... Is it Mark Twain?
Yes. Don't you feel inspired that we're traveling the route of Mark Twain? I'm talking about Avraham Avinu, David HaMelech,
Mark Twain.
Mark Twain.
Yeah.
Mark Twain. This valley directly below us is the Kidron Valley, and then where it meets up with that other valley and turns off away from us, that's the Ben Hinnom Valley where we'll be hiking later.
That's the Gehinnom.
That's what Gehinnom is named after, that valley all the way down there.
Doesn't look so scary.
Today it's a beautiful nature reserve. It's beautiful actually today.
We're here in Jerusalem, the holy city. Here's Zahav, city of gold. It's got a real intensity you can't find anywhere else in the world.
Everyone knows Jerusalem as the city which is the capital of the state of Israel. It's a place of pilgrimage for people all over the world. Billions of people see it as the holiest city in the world.
It's where we direct our prayers to.
We Jews pray facing Jerusalem wherever we are in the world, so we all know Jerusalem, but today we're going to walk from the Ben Hinnom Valley all the way at the bottom of ancient Jerusalem, and we're going to make our way up towards the area of the Temple Mount, and we're going to end today on these steps at the base of the Temple Mount, just outside the ancient Hulda gates, which were the gates where people would ascend to the temple. Jerusalem. We're standing in the old train station of Jerusalem. When I say old, I don't mean thousands of years old, not from the Bible. This train station, which was built by the Ottomans here, it sits adjacent to the ancient road, actually, where Abraham traveled, where David traveled, where Jacob, Isaac, where they all traveled when they came through the area of Jerusalem. So we're standing now very much in modern Jerusalem. This old train station has been turned into an area of cafes and coffee shops and booths. It's beautiful, but we're going to go out this door, we're going to cross the street, and we're going to be going back to Jerusalem from 3,000 and even 4,000 years ago. Ephraim, isn't it beautiful here? Breakfast, coffee,
Brunch.
There's a great hamburger place over here. Really good. Smash burgers, you know.
This makes you think how wonderful life really is.
Life is great, especially I've got a great coffee here. Ah, life is good. This is a tomb from the time of the first temple, from the time of Hezekiah, king of Judah. It's about 2,800 years old, almost.
Whoa.
Almost 2,800 years old. It's hard to understand how this is a tomb because it's just like open to the sky.
Yeah.
But what you have to understand is that if you would have come here 2,800 years ago when this tomb was functioning, we would be standing inside a cave. We would have a roof over our head, walls on all sides, and they would lay the body on one of the stone beds. You see there's a bed here
Yeah.
and an indentation for the head.
Holy.
You see that?
People were way shorter back then.
You want to try it out?
I'm good.
I'm going to show you how it works, okay?
All right.
It says that if you start to find yourself veering from the right path, you should remember the day of death. So this is part of how you can do it. Hundreds of years after this tomb was functioning, the Romans came here and they made a quarry, and they essentially quarried away this whole thing, and that's why it's all broken down. And you don't have the roof and everything, you just have the bottom part.
Those Romans always causing problems.
Yeah, it's the Romans. The family would carry the person in here on the stretcher. They lay the body in one of these slots, and the reason there's multiple slots is, let's say there's a plague, there's a famine, there's a war.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you have casualties, you have 3, 4, 5 people to bury. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. There may have been another one here that sort of broke down,
Yeah.
and there were probably more over there and more over there.
See a couple over there.
And they would come in with the candles, they would come in with incense, fragrant spices to, dead people don't smell good. Some live people don't smell good too,
So I've been told.
but dead people definitely don't smell good. And they would lay the incense around and lay the candles around and lay the body in one of the slots. But then when the prayers are done, they leave the cave and they close the door and they go away for a year. We know that in the Jewish religion we believe that the soul goes through a type of process of judgment for those 12 months. The soul is cleansed of any sins it did, any bad thoughts, speech, action, and that cleansing process could be very short for someone who's very righteous, or it could take up to 12 months. And those 12 months correspond to what's going on with the physical body, because they would leave the body here for 12 months. And after 12 months, they would come back and they would open up the tomb. They would come back in. They would light their candles again, burn their incense again, and what they would find laying here is just a white, clean skeleton. And in fact, it would be such a clean white skeleton that that's why they made here this indentation for the head, because if you just make the bed flat and you don't make an indentation for the skull, it could roll away because it's round, and you might find it shattered on the floor.
Oh no.
Till today, in modern Hebrew, a skull is called a gulgolet.
Gigolet.
Gul.
Gulgolet.
The word gulgolet, it means to roll, like legalgel, or like the galgal of the car, the tire of the car, it's called galgel. So they were afraid it would roll away, and that's why they made this indentation. So now, imagine after a year, the family comes back, and they've been saying the Kaddish prayer, or whatever prayers they may have had in those days back in the first temple times. And they've been understanding that in the next world, the soul is also going through a certain process. And then they come back after a year, they leave the city, they come out here to this cave of their family tomb, and they open the gates once again, and they come in once again and light incense and spices and lamps so they can see. And now they see their mother, their father, their brother, their child, their loved one, that they last time they saw them looked exactly like the person they knew. And now what they find is a clean white skeleton laying here. And what they know is that just like in the spiritual world, there's a sort of cleansing process that's taking place of the soul. How it's cleansed from its misdeeds in this world, or even just from its lack of consciousness, in order that it can move on to bask in the presence of God. And parallel to that spiritual process is the physical process of the decomposition of the flesh. And when it's done, you have the clean white bones laying here, and they know that just like the physical body is completely been cleansed, so too the soul in heaven is now cleansed and can move on.
All the sins have
That's right.
essentially, like the flesh, have gone away.
And also it's a sort of psychological closure for those people, because all of us, every loved one, it's our parents, it's our kids, there's always certain things, let's say, that we're mad at them about, or there's always certain grudges we have against people. And when you see them like that, you sort of understand that it's time to let go. Like, their body has moved on, their soul has moved on, and you have complete closure. So it's actually psychologically very good for the family. And then what they do is they collect the bones into a small basket and they lower them here into this hole. And down here go the bones of this individual, but they get deposited with the last person who was buried here and the person before that. And they could be they're buried with their father, with their grandfather, with their cousin, with their brother, with their child. And all the bones of the extended family are all deposited in one hole all together. That's what it means throughout the Bible when it says something like he died and he was buried in the tomb of his fathers, or he was gathered to his people or gathered to his fathers. It's because all the family would be buried together in this hole. In those days, if someone would die, let's say abroad somewhere, you might bury them temporarily in a local tomb, but then after a year we'd gather the bones. Joseph did that, right?
Yeah.
And there's other stories like that. You would gather the bones after a year and you would put them in a small box and you would carry them and put them in the family tomb. And if someone was buried abroad and their bones weren't eventually brought to their family tomb, this was a disgrace. Today, on the anniversary of the passing, we go back to the cemetery today and we say prayers again. And then we go home and we light again a candle, because
that's the tradition we used to do. When people came back, they did the incense and lit the candles.
And they'd gather the bones and they deposit it in the hole, and there were candles. So we light a candle on the anniversary of the death as well.
Wow.
Today, our traditions date back to this system that was in place. This tomb's from 2,800 years ago, but Abraham would have buried this way almost 4,000 years ago.
I've gone through this so many times. I've been alive in Judaism, observant Judaism, for almost 40 years, and I never knew about this.
I don't think most people know about it, but this is our origin. This is where we come from.
That is incredible.
When they opened up this hole, they didn't expect to find anything in there, because as you can see, this whole tomb complex has been quarried away. So they thought the odds that there'll still be bones or anything significant in this hole are very small, but nevertheless, they excavated all the dirt out, and he was amazed at what they found here. Ephraim, you're not going to believe, this hole is maybe one of the most important holes in the history of archaeology of Jerusalem. They found in this one hole all of these jugs, oil lamps for lighting the candles, like I mentioned, little jars for perfume, incense, and things like that in this hole. They found all of this jewelry. The jewelry that's black, that's silver jewelry. And you can see all the different precious stones and beads and stuff like that.
Were they able to clean the silver, or they left it the way it is?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Why, did you want to buy it for your wife or something?
I would love to.
I don't think it's for sale. All right. They found these Assyrian arrowheads. And of course we know that the Assyrians attacked Jerusalem in the 8th century BC in the time of King Hezekiah. And they surrounded Jerusalem, and they took a lot of cities along the coast, like Lachish and others. And that means that some of the people who were buried in here were killed by the Assyrians. They were soldiers, fought in the war. And of course they found bones of dozens of people in here, which were later reburied with ceremonies. And the most important thing that they found here is this. It's hard to see what it is, but this is a silver amulet. It's a piece of silver hammered thin with inscriptions engraved in it in ancient First Temple Hebrew. In the First Temple period, they had a different font for the letters that most people today are not familiar with. But it reads, and I'm going to read it to you and you're going to recognize this. It says, Shivarechacha Adonai v'yishmereka. What's that?
That is the Birkat Kohanim.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך
Ya'er Adonai Panav Elecha V'yasem lecha shalom. It's the priestly blessing, right? The benediction that the Kohanim, the priests, till today, in the synagogue, here in Israel every day, in some parts of the world only on the holidays, they go up to the front of the synagogue and they raise their hands and they bless the people with these very words from the Bible.
It's one of those things that no matter how many times you come across it, of the same words that someone spoke 2,000+ years ago and you say, it makes you feel that much closer, sort of brings you together. It never gets old. May Hashem bless you and safeguard you. May Hashem illuminate His face for you and be gracious to you. May Hashem lift His face to you and establish peace for you.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך ויעשה לך